it's in less than a second that he goes past all of them. Now, the fact that he's gone past at least 10 agents that you can see, or more than that, right here, and gets cornered or gets caught and arrested at a checkpoint little later, and that's just before the ballroom. This is what Donald Trump also mentioned, and that was the entrance to the ballroom. There was also a first-hand account I was hearing from a different news publication. A senior producer of theirs was in attendance, mentioning that he heard gunshots right behind him and he was sitting very close to the door. Soon enough, the door was closed. At that time, we weren't sure where the gunshots were heard. Was it inside or outside the ballroom? But now, of course, we know it was right outside. He was perhaps just a few steps before entering that ballroom where the U.S. president was sitting, and that's the visual of the ballroom where you see the U.S. president and cabinet members sitting right at the end on the stage. Now, Susan, coming to that same point, when you talk about the security apparatus, we also discussed Pennsylvania Butler. Even at that time, there were a lot of reports that had come out in 2024 mentioning how a lot of onlookers had even pointed out that there is a shooter on the top of the building, and they were pointing it out to the security officials at hand, and there was still an incident thereafter. Here again, there is a question that is getting raised. While there is a lot of praise for the security officials, when do you feel more questions are going to be raised again about how someone so heavily armed could make it so close to the ballroom?
Yeah, I mean, those questions are still being asked, just even as we're speaking right now, online in the virtual world, because I think that's just such a valid question that everyone's wondering that. But as you mentioned, these incidents also happen in a split second. So from the time that perhaps an individual sees it to the time that you try to secure someone like the President of the United States, there is going to be, even if not a few minutes, a few seconds, and those few seconds are so detrimental. But you know, I think it's also, again, really important to note that you're in a hotel in the middle of Washington, D.C., and you have your entire cabinet with you as the President of the United States, and then you have the members of the media, and then other individuals that have been a target as well. For example, Erica Kirk, who is the wife of the late conservative commentator Charlie Cook, was seen crying coming out of that building. You can imagine how she felt. She had to, for example, cancel an event just last week with J.D. Vance because her security team was concerned that there was an attempt against her life if she took that stage. So these situations are very sensitive, they're very fluid, and ultimately could come down to a human error. I mean, you can't deny that. Now, this individual had weapons, but some are wondering, you know, what would happen if he was able to get to that lobby and had explosive devices with him, or he wasn't a lone wolf. You know, these are all questions that need to be addressed, and I think while they are being asked virtually right now, at least behind the scenes, definitely I think the Secret Service will have to huddle to see how they can not only keep the president safe, but also the locations that he hopes to attend.
And I'll revert to the point that you made regarding the partial government shutdown, which we know is very much in place. It's been 70 days, and there are suggestions that the Secret Service perhaps has not been paid. Now, I'll just go over the statements that came in from the US President, came in from the FBI Director, and if you just go over all the statements that came in also from Todd Blanche, the US Attorney General, there were at least over nearly 12 to 15 instances where they would repeatedly mention what a great job the Secret Service did. One of the initial comments from Kash Patel was that the Secret Service agents and the security officials, they know Trump has their back, the US president has their back. Secret Service knows Donald Trump is behind them. What do you make of these kind of statements where 100% they were able to apprehend the shooter? Do you read anything more into it, given the fact that there is a partial government shutdown and that is impacting the Secret Service too?
The Department of Homeland Security hasn't been funded. That is outrageous, not only because something like this could happen, but it's also because we're in the middle of an active war with Iran right now. So while there is a ceasefire, you know, the situation is extremely sensitive, and to not have parts of the Department of Homeland Security not being funded when things like this could happen very easily is a question on everyone's mind. Now, I know that this incident just happened were just a few hours of something that was very stressful, traumatic, and while there is relief, but I think that that issue is going to be raised very soon on which directions ultimately, the individuals, notably Democrats in Congress, want to take in just not only securing the president and his cabinet, but also, the thousands of other people that could be present anytime these individuals go anywhere. So it is a very sensitive situation, and they had to come out and present a unified stance because something like this just happened. But those questions are absolutely valid, and they're going to have to be asked as soon as maybe tomorrow or Monday.
We understand, of course, this is the U.S. president we're talking about, and he mentioned that this is not the first time a Republican was attacked with pursuance to kill, and it happened in Pennsylvania, it happened in Florida, and now we have it in Washington, D.C. Maybe not in the same severity level, but 100% this was an attempt that was being made. It was foiled at the right time. But how do you see this one getting politicized very soon? Because that was a sense that you see him coming in when he talks about California, which is a blue state, and then he talks about, when he mentions about Republicans getting shot. How soon do you think that's going to come to the fore? Because that is a reality we're going to see very soon, is what precedent tells us.